The referee's a podcast with Jack and Kelly Toe. Scottish Championship class, they give us the show. Footy tales from the pitch, controversies they scratch. Every moment they'll itch, no call left to bash.
Here we go again. We're back. It's the Referees a Podcast. Season 2, episode 15. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, Jack Curry, how are we doing? You are here with me today.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cammy boy. I'm with you, recovering from a bit of illness. So I think everybody listening, you'll know there's this bug going around. So I hope you are all keeping well and dandy. But no, Cam, I'm on the mend. I'm very, very, very excited, as you can imagine, to talk Scottish Championship stuff.
Oh, really? I didn't think didn't think you liked the Scottish Championship.
Nah, you know me. You turn up every week here just for the sake of it,
Just
and
a
I just
glory
do it
hunter,
for the love of the listeners.
Just a glory hunter. Just goes around supporting whatever team's in good form. That's why he's hardly ever tied down to one football ground. He's all over the place as our Jack Curry, just scouting out who he's going to support next. But it's good to see you sticking around for a wee bit longer.
Oh yeah, well, you know me. But no, Cam. All jokes aside, obviously it's been some time.
Yes, so obviously it has been mighty nice for you, bloody people.
No, it's been great. So I'm very excited to get onto that and talk about that a wee bit more in depth. But how's things been for yourself? Obviously, we'll update the listeners. We both had our birthdays as well, which probably excused one of the weeks. So
yeah,
I hope
so
you do all forgive us.
First one I was ill. Then it was a combo of our birthdays and just sort of general tomfoolery. And then you were sick, so it's been a bit.
But then we're back.
We're back. We made it.
I think we only did miss 2.
Maybe.
I think we're just a day late.
Not 100%. Yeah, two in a day late.
2 in a day late. Could be worse.
It could be worse. In my head, I thought it was worse.
We are more inconsistent than air, though.
I think we're maybe about the same.
I would say
About the same.
Maybe. We'll give ourselves that.
I was going to give Air the benefit of the doubt, but sure, us.
Yeah, exactly. We'll back ourselves. But no, as we'll do, listeners, we always do thank you. We'll stop joking around for a second. We always do thank you for turning up, sticking with us and listening. So yeah, from both of us, we do appreciate that, Cam. But we'll just get cracking, Cam, as we do. Just pick up as if we've fucking done this week in, week out.
Yes.
And the unfortunate place to start came after a glorious day of hot dogs, donuts, beverages, good company.
We had a lovely time, listeners, me and Mr. Jack Curry. I had the Friday off. You had the entire week off, but I had the Friday. So we got together. We hung out, as he said, some dogs. That's hot dogs, just in case. Some beverages, some donuts, all the good stuff. Played some darts.
We did.
And then, I get myself ready, saunter off, get my train to the football. At this point, no mention of anything at all. Get on the train. Train's one stop away from Mount Florida when I get a message from yourself saying, BBC Scotland saying the game's postponed. I was like, fuck off. Right, okay, cool. Went on the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook. No mention of a game postponed or anything, or a pitch inspection of any sort. And I was like, are you sure? Yep, definitely, 100%. So yeah, I checked, went on BBC iPlayer, went live, and to my dismay, whilst already standing at Mount Florida train station, I was viewing the fact that the game had just been called off mere minutes before. And this was got called off 7:30 for a 7:15 kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, literally. I mean, because I was so excited for it. Friday night. I was already in Glasgow. I could just literally chill, watch the action. Enjoy it. And literally, just as the coverage started, they just went, and we're just getting word actually as we're coming on air that the game's off. And you're
Yeah.
just like, what? Like, so they were as shocked as us, and I think it was just more the fact that when I'm thinking back, it obviously was cold, but like it wasn't like it
Yeah, it
didn't feel
was
like
chilly for sure. But yeah, it didn't seem like a day where a game was getting called off.
no.
But then on top of that, how is it not noticed earlier on? Because obviously it was called off for a frozen pitch, so the pitch wasn't getting any less frozen as time went on. So I don't know how it's whenever it's been looked at earlier on, it's been fine. Then all of a sudden, an hour or two later, it's frozen. So yeah, I don't really know what's went on and what's happened there.
Yeah,
But I
because I
was
mean,
I was mightily frustrated, I tell you.
I'm not privy to exactly how it works on a match day in terms of, is it the home team's groundsman obviously would have an initial look, say in the morning, and then, would maybe report back, or would it be the referee usually comes down earlier on, or a fourth official, or somebody to inspect the pitch? I don't know. But as you said there, Cam, somebody, and I think we do need to remember, obviously, here, we've not mentioned it so far, it's Ross County fans coming
Oh
down
yeah.
where they're going to have to take at least a half day, if not a full day off work, to come down for a midweek game. So I think
The one thing
that
I'd
has to be taken into
say
consideration.
One thing I'd say in relation to the Ross County fans is even had the game been called off at 6 o'clock, they were still more than halfway to Glasgow, if not there already, if they've managed to travel down earlier on in the day. So yes, I 100% agree, but even had the game been called off a little bit sooner, it wouldn't have made too much of a difference to those unfortunate travelling Ross County fans. I think the bigger issue I think that we have to look at is how much money Queen's Park spent on this stadium and this state-of-the-art pitch and didn't think to put under-soil heating in.
Well, that was the thing that actually blew my mind, and I must say I've seen it pop up on social media a couple of times, Cam, as well.
Yeah.
Is that I just assumed it had undersoil
Yeah.
heating.
It's
I
never
mean, it's a
come
new
up.
stadium.
It's never come up because we've never played here more than the first 4 or 5 games of the season. So we hadn't played any winter games. So this hadn't been an issue prior. But now, yes, obviously we're coming to the realization that despite spending 10 million on a stadium with less than 1,000 capacity, with a royal box with heated seats for directors, a dressing room modelled on Tottenham Hotspur's dressing rooms, and a state-of-the-art £500,000 surface, and didn't put under-soil heating in. I just, honestly, I mean,
It actually just sums up everything that's went wrong with Queen's Park and the money in the last year.
It's
It
not the
really
last
is.
year. I mean, it's
Well, last
the
2 years,
same
whatever.
same financial issues that lost us Hampden to the SFA in the first place back when we redeveloped it before. That's why the SFA got the 20-year lease, because we ran ourselves to bankruptcy.
Because the other thing I was going to say as well on this is, did the Scottish national team not sometimes train on Lesser as well?
Oh yeah, the Scottish national team still train in Lesser all the time. That was part of our arrangement to play in Hampden. Was the Scottish national team were able to train at Lesser, but they're still training at Lesser, and we're no longer at Hampden. And I would bet money on the fact that we're not charging Scotland anything to train there as well.
Well, yeah, that's a separate point. But the thing I was thinking there, Cam, is like, it was only last week we had the Scottish national team playing at Hampden, So
Yeah.
they would have been, I mean, I can't remember, I didn't see training pics or whatever, but they would have been training at Lesser. Could
They
you
would have
imagine
been,
could you imagine the national embarrassment if that cold snap had happened that week?
Yeah.
And then the Scottish national team couldn't train at the training pitch because it was frozen and they didn't have undersoil heating. You know what I mean? It's like wee things like that it just makes it so unbelievable to see the state of some of the decisions for the whole of Scottish football that go on here.
Well, to be fair, Lesser Hampden's nothing to do with the SFA. We just shoehorned that in. They have no hold over Lesser in any capacity, and it was never really built to be Scotland's training pitch. That's just something that the one small tiny piece of leverage we had to chuck in a deal with the SFA. So that was never supposed to be its intention. So they never thought, right, this is going to be a Scotland training pitch. We're going to make sure that it's got all these things that Scotland might need. That was just our bargaining chip. But that bargaining chip is looking a lot less shiny now. Not that it was ever shiny. It was a polished turd before. Now it's just a turd.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a pretty honest self-reflection, and I think it's a difficult situation, really, because obviously, like, you speak to any Queen's Park fan or hear any Queen's Park fan talk online, and you all unite and all agree that what's going on is wrong, but what can you do about it? I mean, that's the difficult part, So
it's a fan-owned club. It's membership based, and you're a member and you get a vote, but it's like voting in real life. It's only a facade of giving you control and power. It's all just shows and magic tricks and games. It's all just fake shit.
Not good. But I suppose what that does mean is we'll get on to the games coming up, because you know how excited we get here if you've been a previous listener about Cup weekend, But it'll have been, a wee bit of time since your last, bit of action in the league, Cam.
Yeah.
Since you return into that, you are still sitting above County in the league, above that relegation playoff spot. Mm-hmm. It's not really a bad position to be in. If
it's
you gave,
fine. Yeah.
If you, if what I was going to say is if you offered you this position come the end of the season, I'm sure you would bite your hand off for it.
Yes and no. I had hoped that there would be, obviously we finished 8th last year, finished 8th the year before. I had hoped for at least a place of progression. Maybe that was hoping a little too much, based on where we are and where we're going, and what we have at our disposal. This is probably more of a fair reflection. The big scary thing is Ross County is still one of the two teams below, which, despite them trying to the contrary, they're not likely to stay there for very long, I don't think.
Well, I mean, I do. I still go to agree with you, but see, from what I've seen, Cam, Ross County genuinely have been and are one of the worst teams in this league, just based on how they play on the pitch,
Yeah.
And they still do have this amazing squad, and comparable to most other teams in the league, and they should be up there fighting with St Johnstone and Thistle. But anytime I've seen them and you watch the highlights, they're pretty dire.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what the answer is. You've got Tony Dock there, Robertson there, Callum Davidson. I mean, what more can they really ask for? So I think Ross County could be in trouble unless, between now and January, they really can go on a small run to lift themselves up, the positions in the league. For them, you look at where they are, 22 points behind the leaders.
I know, but from my perspective, for what I'm talking about, it's not about them getting anywhere near the league or the playoff. It's just not being below us.
I think the thing as well is I mean, do you look at any of the teams above you and think that they could be drawn back down as well?
No.
Not even like a Morton with Emery leaving, which I was going to get onto, but let's talk about that now. What do you make it? What do you make it? Emery leaving and going to Wraith?
I don't know. It depends on how much you think the manager sort of makes that Morton team what it is. I mean, obviously it is to some degree. He's been there a while. He's stamped away football in there. So it's certainly going to be tough for them. But I suppose, it's still the same Morton team as it stands at the moment. They'll still likely be playing at least similarly for the time being. They've not appointed anyone yet, have they?
No, not that I've seen.
No, so until they get a new manager, I think it won't be too much of an impact. Some of them may be hurting a little bit. But other than that, I think we'll see much the same until they get someone new in. It'll be interesting to see who they appoint, actually. I don't really have any idea.
No, like it's a really, when you kind of think who could potentially step in, there's, it's not, something where you can typically, pick 5 or 6 names, at this level, think to shout out for a job like that. Don't get me wrong, Cam, there'll be tons of interest,
Oh, yeah.
and I think Morton, what they'll do is, having stuck with Emery for such a long time and found the relative success that they did, I think they'll take their time over this next appointment. I don't think they're going to be, in any much of a rush to get rid of him. Obviously there was the talk before, Thistle decided on going for Wilson, that Emery was one of the guys that was, in the interviewees for the job at Firhill. Obviously then Wraith have picked him up, so I'm sure there's been other teams that have at least considered him or had him on shortlists at one point and another. So, he's a manager where he's been solid. As I said, he's found relative success with a very modest budget, a decent team like Morton. So it's one of those ones where Wraith, for me, it's like an angled, it's not a straight up, woodward step for him. It's not like a massive forward step, but I do think it's a small enough step to be considerable, though.
Yes.
If that makes sense in terms of, like,
definitely.
I get why he's going to Wraith. I get it with a team, a big bit of budget, bigger fan base, bigger stadium, etc. There's the history there with Wraith as well. So from his perspective, I get it. It'll be interesting to see, though, whether it is the right thing. And I'm really interested, Cam, to see what our listeners think. Anybody, if you've got an opinion, Wraith fan, Morton fan, anybody in the league, I think this is the big talking point just now. What do you think will happen? Do you think it'll be a good appointment? And who do you think, with Wraith just sitting a point ahead of Morton after the same game played, what's going to happen between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, definitely. It's a big one. Definitely interesting to see how those two teams finish come the end of the season. But all we know at the moment is Dougie Emery gained himself an additional point by moving teams, so I'm sure he'll be happy about that.
And he does love doing it 1 point at a time. So, I mean, it absolutely is Emery all over.
It's perfect. So, we're now going to start seeing Wraith Rovers drawn most games.
Yes.
1 each and 0-0.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I did just have a look there. It's Billy Davis, believe it or not, Cam, that is in temporary charge of Morton.
Right.
That is going to be cinema. That is going to be fucking amazing. So I think it's been a good 10 years maybe since he's been last in a job down in high profile in England. I think he's got a good record. I think it's not afraid to see he's had a bit of controversy over the years as well. So I think this is going to be great, Cam, for the next few weeks.
Well, that is exciting stuff. We'll have to see how that goes. Speaking of football, we should probably have a wee gander at some of the games that have come there. We've obviously touched on the postponed game that never was. We've spoken of a few teams lightly so far, but there was a bunch of games at the weekend there. Starting off, Airdrie against Ayr United. This game, as all the other games on the Saturday, was on Saturday. Just in case everyone wasn't aware, all of these games were on. So Ayr United travelled to Airdrie. What a game that when you look at it in terms of names, you'd think, oh, that must be some sort of local rivalry or of some kind. But no, Airdrie and Ayr are in fact, not very close at all, and are not rivals. The game itself, 1-0 Ayr away from home. What do you think of that outcome there?
Interesting, really, really interesting, Cam. I think this is exactly why we've said Ayr are inconsistent. Yeah. Because Airdrie turned a bit of a corner. Yes. I think I'm right in saying under Alan Taylor Sinclair, who I think is still in temporary charge. He's not been given it permanent or anything yet, but they've been looking really good. Like especially when I was at the Friday night game away at Airdrie a good few weeks ago now, and Thistle obviously pulled the bag out with that. Late equaliser where the keeper made the horrible mistake. They look good on the night. They've pulled themselves up to just a point behind County and 2 points behind yourselves, albeit having played an extra game here. And I think they'll be really disappointed, Cam, with Ayr going down to 10 men for the last half an hour on Saturday there, and they didn't get anything out of the game at home.
Yeah.
I think considering, as I said, it looked as if they were turning a wee bit of a corner. Not to say they obviously haven't now, but to flip side it again, I think it shows Ayr United showed probably a good bit of steel on the day to get the result.
Definitely, especially after I don't know if you saw the red card for Marco Rus, or the 2 yellows. But just
no,
silly.
I haven't.
Just silly, The first one, I mean, they're both probably yellow cards. The first one, maybe lesser so of a yellow. He nibbling away at the guy, and eventually, concedes the foul, takes the yellow. And then it's looking there, 59th minute, he's, the guy's trying to run around him, and he just basically pulls him to the ground, and you're like, why would you do that? It's just, you're on a yellow card. That, you'd have to be really careful. Because even if a challenge isn't a yellow card challenge, you're much more likely to get that as a second yellow than you would say just it being a first yellow. So you've got to be careful. And yeah, obviously Ayr United not punished for it. Luckily for him, I think he'd have had some apologies. Not that he didn't already have some apologies to make, but had they not taken all 3 points from that, certainly would have been an unhappy dressing room there. But they managed to get the points and continue their inconsistency towards third place there. So it's
a bizarre one. It is, right. This is the thing that really blows my mind, Cam, with this league, right? Ayr United have had 1-1-6 in the league, but somehow have lifted themselves up to third. And we're going to probably get on to praising teams below them for playing well and getting good results, but they're somehow, it just blows my mind, It's a strange one where this season, I think they're going to be a bit of an anomaly. I can't say that word. Anomaly. I'll try again.
Try it one more.
Anomaly.
We'll give it to you.
Thank you.
Yes, no, they certainly will be. Thankfully for us, though, us being Queen's Park, not us being Referees a Podcast, Airdrie not managing to take any points from that game, and Ayr managing to hold out, take the 3 points, and starve Airdrie of any more points for the time being. So obviously keeping them down plumb bottom at the moment, 11 points, but only 1 point behind Ross County, 2 points behind Queen's Park, so by no means adrift at the bottom as they were for vast portions of last year.
Yeah, absolutely. They've clawed themselves right back into this one, and if they keep up the performances, and Taylor Sinclair certainly putting himself in contention for the job, then they're not going to be the Airdrie that we maybe thought of 5 or 6 weeks ago, under Danny Lennon, where you think, yep, they're definitely going down, because don't think that at all now. They're giving themselves a fighting chance.
Definitely. So we'll see how that unfolds as the season goes on. I still think it's going to be a tough old year for them, but nothing to say that come the end of this season they're definitively relegated, like you say there. So no, we know Airdrie are fairly prone to a late season comeback as well. So we'll see how that goes as the season progresses. Next up, we had Arbroath at home to Wraith Rovers. Looking at that game on paper before the game takes place, Arbroath up in the playoff places, Wraith Rovers in a patch of awfully poor form overall. They had a good start, and they've really dropped off the boil a wee bit. In Arbroath, obviously, they're just flying high in comparison to where I think most people were expecting them to be. So for it to be a 0-0 draw come the end of it, what did you think about that?
It's one of those weird ones where you would have thought Imrie was already in charge of Wraith at this point, with that result.
Yeah.
It obviously was the inspiration, that they sealed the deal. He thought, this squad's up for my way of playing.
Yeah.
All joking aside, it's one of those ones, a draw away from home for Wraith Rovers, and 0-0. I'm sure the fans would have came away disappointed again with that. Nobody really likes a 0-0.
Nah.
But, in the context of, I think it was Paul Hanlon that was put in charge. One of your own players. It's never an easy situation for anybody at the club. When you've just got your manager sacked and you still need to turn out there for the fans and put a performance in. I think the main takeaway from Wraith Rovers from that day is clean sheet and they didn't get beat.
Yeah.
But as you've kind of said there, Cam, they're in a horrific run of form just now, and they're only going one way, and that's downward. So they really, really need to hope that Emery can come in, hit the ground running, and get their squad turned around, because we all know Wraith Rovers do have a good squad.
They do, even though they have making me doubt it as of late. However, when you look at the stats of that game, they've dominated the possession against Arbroath, 57%. They've had 6 shots, which isn't as many as Arbroath had. 0 on target. 0 out of 6 shots on target. That's something that needs to, sharpen up mighty well. I know Arbroath will have been, defending their box really well, forcing the long shots, I would presume, and that's why none of them have been on target. But even still, you need to be. If you have any intentions of winning a game, you need to be making sure you're testing the keeper at least once. So that obviously hasn't happened for Wraith against Arbroath, and they have paid for it. However, based on their form, coming away with a 0-0 draw, 1 point away from Gayfield, with Arbroath playing the way that they have been so far this season, I think they'll probably be pleased with that overall. It stops the bleeding a little bit for Wraith Rovers, who had just lost the previous 2 games. So I think they'll be reasonably pleased with that. And now they've got a new manager in charge. Maybe things are looking up for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the one thing when I do look at Wraith Rovers, and we've seen it especially the last year or two, the amount of holes Dylan Easton's got them out of has been incredible, and I think there's only so long that can continually go on for, and I think it could just be that they're just starting to get found out a wee bit, when that one star player isn't really, doing it week in, week out. This is what happens.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's one of those ones where I think they need to really, really, really hope that he can pick up his form as well, because I don't think he's been hitting the heights as what we know he can be.
No, definitely not. You're right when you say there. Once the teams work out how to just shut that player out of the game, it can vastly turn around the performance of the entire team. I certainly remember noticing at any time, say, Dom Thomas was out injured for Queen's Park. We played worse, and because of that, won much less games and scored much less goals and just looked less dangerous. I think that's the worst part about it. Fans don't mind so much losing a game or drawing a game when the team's out there giving it all. Unlucky, had some good shots and played really good, but just not been good enough in the end. They don't mind that so much because at least they can see they're sort of trying. So, I can't even remember what led me on to that point. But I think it's valid and it works. So, yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely. And that sounds like the perfect place to park Arbroath v Wraith and go on to Dunfermline for what was Emery's last game in charge. And Dunfermline, I think when I said earlier on, talking about a team that's in better form than they are but still below them in the league, I really was talking about Dunfermline here. You look at the 3 wins and a draw in their last 6, a couple of defeats. We'll get on to one of them shortly. But, they won this one here at home against Morton. Charlie Gilmore getting the goal pretty early on. How do you think Dunfermline are getting on just now? They look to be kind of making some ground in Arbroath. They are in better form than they are.
Yeah.
Do you kind of put them as the 3rd best team in the league just now? Even though they're 5th?
Yeah, I think so. They are looking awfully good. It's the team's really coming together now. After a fair bit of tinkering through it last year, trying to work it all out. Obviously, Lennon come in steadying the ship and really putting a stamp on it this year, and he's sort of finally pulling that all together now. Obviously, relying on quite heavily on their homegrown Tods, but outside of that, a really good team, a really good squad of players. They look like they're playing really together now, and good team passing football. And sorry about that. They are just good team to watch as well, which again I think is, to tie it back to the last point that I forgot where it was going. It's nice to watch. So even if the results don't necessarily go their way, at least you can say, well, we had some good moments and some good stuff, but Dunfermline have been doing the business in the last few weeks. And yeah, I think you're probably spot on saying they're, at the moment, how they're playing, the third best team in the league, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that draws my eyes when I'm kind of having a wee bit of look here at the table is they've conceded the joint least amount of goals in the league, alongside St Johnstone there at 15. You know, just under a goal a game, and they actually have scored the third most goals as well. So I think overall in the balance of play, they're kind of one of those teams where they are doing pretty well. They do have a young squad. They've got an interesting squad as well, with a different type of range of players that are in there. And I think they're sticking along quite nicely, Cam. You know, and I remember at the first few weeks of the season, after we made our big predictions, and I tipped Dunfermline to finish ahead of Wraith in the league, I thought, what on earth have I done there?
Yeah.
But the longer it goes on, I think that's going to be vindicated, and I think you do see a clear plan at Dunfermline just now, where, you know, when we were talking about Wraith, and it's because it is their Fife rivals, you know, you've got their opposition in their Wraith Rovers flailing, you know, so I think it's one where Dunfermline, albeit will go on to their defeat against, you know, my side in a wee bit. I think they can be very pleased with how they're progressing and getting on just now.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
But yes, no, you're right. They're looking good. They're doing good, and I think they'll all be hoping that will continue for a good wee bit longer. However, obviously, like you mentioned, you guys do play them on the Tuesday night. However, before that, it's actually going to be a back-to-back Thistle rundown. So take us through Saturday, first of all, 2-1 against league leaders St Johnstone.
So I was at this one, Cam. Didn't obviously make it on Tuesday.
Hang on. Jack Curry at a Partick Thistle game? I don't believe it.
Well, get your, you know, can you believe it?
No.
You know, really? I already announced I'd made the Airdrie game, and then I made this one.
You know? You're lying now.
Setting the world alight, really, isn't it? But, what a game to be at, you know. It's one of those ones, turning up to Firehill's just always been a joy, Cam. You know, it's such a great place to watch football. But especially when, you know, you're unbeaten at home like we are, you know, going into every game full of confidence, you know. And it was a really, really interesting one, turning up to Firhill on Saturday, where there was a big crowd in. You know, it felt like a big game. You know, all credit to St Johnstone fans because they came down in their numbers. But we rose to the occasion magnificently. You know, Mark Wilson completely changed his tactics, went 4-4-2, something that we just haven't done all season, and that you could tell him instantly that through St Johnstone.
Yeah,
you know, they weren't used to what we were about to do, and you know, a goal after 6 minutes was the perfect way to start that. You know, you then follow that up with just such an excellently well drilled team performance. You know, where we allowed St Johnstone to have by far the majority to the possession, but and just completely in areas where they couldn't hurt us. You know, anytime they tried to get close to the box or create a chance, that was when we snuffed it out.
Yeah.
But we were just so happy just letting them pass it about, basically. You know, and it's so unlike us because we usually are the team kind of doing that. You know. But it worked, just an absolute treat. And Tony Watt scoring just a outrageous goal just before half time. It was better and better the more you see it back. Set up the second half to just follow more of the same, and fair play to St Johnstone, they kept at it, they kept trying, and you know, they got the goal back through McPake. But you know, there was only one deserved winner in the game. And that, you know, was Thistle. You know, Valakari was very, very honest in his assessment after the game and said it as well. You know, Mark Wilson spoke about it and how pleased he was with that. Was exactly what he wanted from the team. So it's excellent, Cam, to see us be able to go out, you know, play attacking most weeks and do that well, but also to know that we've got the maturity to do what we did against St Johnstone's the most pleasing thing for me.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously it put you in a mighty fine position in the league going into your game in hand on the Tuesday. It was what left you 3 points behind St Johnstone with a game in hand. So obviously we're foreshadowing a little bit here. but it did set you up mighty nicely to go level in points with St Johnstone if you're able to win the Tuesday night game, which adds that sort of extra little bit of deliciousness to the win on Saturday, doesn't it?
Exactly, because you hear terms in football, we hear cliches in football so often. That one of the biggest ones is the 6-pointer.
Yeah.
That was the definition of a 6-pointer.
Yeah.
At that point of St Johnstone pulling such a lead, of 9 points on Thistle. Even if we had that game in hand, we would only have been 6 points behind St Johnstone at that stage. To then make it 3 with the fact that you could then go level on points with them just makes it, even better, So it's one of those ones where I think everybody at the club knew how big a game it was. And that's a pressure in itself in football, is to being able to rise to that, especially when St Johnstone tanked us 5-1 in the first game of the season. So I spoke about Dunfermline having a young squad. I think there's experienced heads in the Thistle team, but when you do look at it, it is a young team as a core. So I think it's interesting to see how well we coped with that. And as you said, it set up Tuesday night perfectly.
Yeah, it obviously makes sense for us just to crack on and discuss a little bit now. Obviously, Partick Thistle at home to Dunfermline, 1-0, the victory there in that one. You weren't at this one.
No, it wasn't at this one. Down for work, and obviously, as I alluded to, not been feeling great anyway this week. But yeah, Aidan Fitzpatrick scoring after 25 minutes. One of those great strikes from outside the box. I think keeper could only get his hand on it. And, Thistle, I think, were just about the better team and edged, a good Dunfermline side out on the night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, obviously I didn't see it. I wasn't there. No facilities for watching midweek games unless it's a Friday night. But looking at the statistics, Dunfermline getting the better of the ball, however, not being able to fashion any shots on target. So what that says to me is, again, you're clamping down on your box extremely well, forcing them to take long shots or just shots into crowds, forcing them to take poor chances. Obviously not been the case for yourselves, managing to sneak a wee goal and then holding on. But maybe a slightly more defensive performance than you had maybe been expecting for a home tie against a team who not maybe necessarily in form, but is obviously lower down in the table than you. So on paper you'd think, okay, a nice home tie against a lower in the league opposition. We'll have that. But obviously still doing the business in the end. 3 points to take you level with St Johnstone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when I only seen the highlights when they came out the next day, and it kind of was that. It was one of the first things I thought, to be fair, is I'm glad we had Undersea heating, because I think it was -2 on Tuesday night at Firhill, and you could see, like, by the end of the game, the pitch was getting a bit white, like it was starting to frost over. So it was obviously really cold. So I think it's one of those horrible nights to play football. There was chances for both teams. Thistle hit the post, and Dunfermline had a few themselves, but as I said, I think again just one of those ones where I think overall we've just edged it out, and I think there's a real cleverness in the Partick Thistle management team just now as well. Cam, I'm going to bring something up that I noticed online and people talking about was, I think Dan O'Reilly is suspended for our next league game. Whoever that will be, I can't remember off the top of my head just now. And as it is just now, Lee Ashcroft is also 1 yellow card away from a suspension. Now, with the next game being against Forfar in the Cup, obviously that would then be the league game. So they purposely just didn't play Ashcroft in this game, so that both him and O'Reilly couldn't be suspended for the exact same league game. And that's just something that in the past.
The Scottish Cup carry over? I know the League Cup. No, the League Cup doesn't either, actually. Do the yellow cards carry over to cup competitions? I don't think that they do.
No, they don't, no.
So, sorry, I don't know that I understand what you're saying.
They were just clever about not playing our player, so both our centre-backs weren't suspended for the same game, basically.
Right, okay. That's
Which was
good. That's good. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm
no, it's
not
a good
with
point.
you, but I appreciate that you know what you're talking about, and that some people
Yeah.
listening will also understand. I didn't quite get it. I didn't get how the league, the cup game came into it. Maybe that's the bit that's throwing me.
Yeah, that's probably me just adding that in unnecessarily.
Speaking of the
But
cup, that's obviously what we've got coming up this weekend. No league
Cam,
fixtures.
love the cup, and that also excuses for the fact that I think we forgot to do our predictions for a couple of weeks as well, so we can just gloss over that
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
talk about cup
exactly.
action.
That's exactly the way.
So if you are playing along at home, then you've just rocketed yourself into the lead and sending us a big middle finger, and we're not going to be able to catch you probably for a good wee while.
That's
So
it.
we'll just talk about cup action, Cam. And you're on the telly,
We are.
maybe. Are you actually going to make it on the telly this week?
Well, it depends. Linlithgow probably has undersoil heating. Nah.
Oh, but well, I wouldn't bank on that, would they?
Yeah,
I mean,
nah.
I don't know if they're one of these artificial pitch teams. I must say, I don't know massive amounts about Linlithgow Rose, apart from what we were discussing before we came on air,
Yeah.
which was it's Kinnaneed Edinburgh and they've got Blair Henderson up front.
Yeah, well, looking at the weather, which I have been doing, it looks like it's going to be okay. It doesn't look like it's going to be freezing any time up until or even after the game, from now until then. So I think we'll be fine. Never say never, though. But yes, I think I'll actually be able to see some football, some Queen's Park football this weekend. Woohoo! And yep, Friday
I've
night
seen-
on TV. A place I've never been, a team that I've never seen us play. Hopefully something that can maybe give us a wee bit of confidence if we can go there and play well and win the game. That's obviously the main point, but you can never be too sure with this lot, especially the sort of injury situation that we tend to find ourselves in. So, yeah, I don't really know what to think coming up for this game, but fingers crossed it'll be a cracker.
Yeah, one of the things that I'd actually seen as well when I was having a wee look at the squad is apparently Thistle have got a cooperation loan agreement with Linlithgow Rose.
Right.
So there's a couple of your loan players on loan there, so yeah, it would be extra nice to see them do well in that game and not
Whoa.
get the cup, obviously.
Oh, boo. Is
I'm
that so we
only
can
making it up.
concentrate on winning the league? Okay, good idea. Good
If
idea.
you
We,
can- if you wanna
we
do
don't
that,
want to
you do
win the
that.
cup. We want to win the league. That's a good idea. That's a good point.
It's one of those ones, Kaz. How do you even process the Scottish Cup this season compared to what happened last year?
Yeah, you don't. You don't. Until we draw Rangers away again, and it'll maybe start to spice up a wee bit. But we have to get through Linlithgow first. But that is obviously the only Friday night game. We've got everyone playing on Saturday. Actually, I don't know that it's everyone. Is there any Sunday games? No. Everyone
Doesn't look
play.
like it.
Everyone on Saturday.
Everyone else Saturday.
Starting
At three.
with Airdrie against
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Lanarkshire Derby here.
So yeah, I mean, I don't really, Hamilton. They're in a sort of still swarmed with off-field issues. They're playing at Clyde, and Clyde are playing at Hamilton. And I think Hamilton was just been told by the SPFL that their chairman and their CEO are not fit to run a football club and have been told they must leave the club and everything. And they're obviously not too happy about that. And they're saying, nah, we think we're perfectly well placed to run a club. Thank you very much. And the SPFL are like, well, we've just given you, points deductions in back-to-back years for financial mismanagement of the club, and you're destroying the club. In fact, and they're like, no, I don't think that's us. So Airdrie are obviously looking better now on the up. So you'd probably have to imagine that Airdrie is going to have a fairly nice time on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say that, but Hamilton are still playing. I mean, they've got everything you said is correct. They have all these horrible off-field issues, but they're somehow playing well in the league. It's bizarre. I mean, the thing that kind of blows my mind about Hamilton is how they kind of kept all their players.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as if they just had to get. I was expecting Hamilton to have to get rid of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The was it who's the big guy they've got up front again? Ollie Shaw and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, how have they kept him? Anyway, that's a different topic. But Hamilton
Financial
are right. You would still
mismanagement, maybe.
The what? Sorry.
Financial mismanagement, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. No, that's probably the point there. That's why they're fucked. But I mean, I do agree with you. You would think Airdrie being the championship side, we spoke about they've turned a bit of a corner. You would still fancy them at home, but it's by no means a gimme against a plucky wee League One team coming up there.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it'll be a bit of a fierce atmosphere as well. Down at the Excelsior or Albert Bartlett, or whatever it's called nowadays. So I think it's going to be an interesting one, Cam. I think it's a good one to get the Saturday action kicked off.
No, from my memory of the Hamilton fans and my knowledge of the Airdrie fans, it will be one of the games this weekend where 30% of the fans in the stadium will just be looking at each other rather than watching the game. Don't know if you ever remember this from Hamilton away, but there's just that whole section of the fan base, the Hamilton fan base, that would just stand and sing and shout and look at the away fans the entire game. Not interested in the football. They're all just standing there shouting and screaming and swearing at you, and you're like, come on, you may as well just watch the game. You've paid to be here.
And especially when it's like playing against like yous, and like yous are like, we don't care.
I know. There's 70 of us sitting there just going, all right, cool.
No, that's funny. No, that's funny. So it'll be interesting of who can shout the loudest on Saturday.
Aye. Beyond Airdrie, their non-local rivals Ayr are playing against Turriff United, another team
That's
I've
brilliant.
never played.
Yeah, Turriff. I've never played. I've never been.
Nah.
I know they're in the Highland League, but
Barely
I couldn't tell you
heard
where
of
Turriff
them,
is.
if I'm honest. Yeah.
Yeah, Turriff. I'm actually currently googling it. Oh my god, that is a trip and a half for them to get to Ayr, Cam. It's between Aberdeen and Elgin,
Oft.
but like off the beaten track. Turriff, what a place.
Just south of Banff.
Yeah, so yeah,
Everyone loves Banff.
we do. But I mean, it'll be one of the the highlights. Turriff Town. The whole town's here. To be fair, Scottish Cup third round. I'd imagine there'll be a good few hundred of them travelling down to United and making a right good day of it. So, on paper, that's only going to go one way, but it's the magic of the cup, and I suppose you just never know what could happen in these days.
Definitely not. And a game where you have a better idea of what's going to happen is Banks of Dee against Ross County. I can't help but think Banks of Dee's got that one in the bag, no problem.
It's interesting, Cam. It actually is like one of those ones where you joke in the bag. Obviously, obviously not, but you could see an upset happening here.
100%.
It's got banana skin written all over it. I don't actually think Banks of Dee are even a Highland League team though. I think they are a slightly below that level.
Right.
So I think we're talking about a pretty low level team here. So I think if Banks of Dee did cause a surprise, this could be a Darvel situation we're talking about.
Yes, good. We've been missing that. We need something like that. So that could be this year's special fixture, special upset. Certainly be keeping a track of that game on Saturday. Ideal. Next up, sorry, we've got to scroll a wee bit here. The next one looks like Dunfermline, yes, against Queen of the South. Another home game for the championship side here. I don't actually know how Queen of the South are doing in League One at the moment. I feel like they've been sort of languishing since they dropped down there.
They've been so disappointing. I think this is maybe the fourth year or something. Queen of the South have been
I think
League
they
One.
dropped down the year that Queen's Park got promoted, maybe.
Right, so yous have been their curse basically.
Yeah.
There can only be one Queen though, at least in the top two levels here.
Maybe
Queen's Park
we
and Queen
were
of the
in
South. They
League
can
One
only
at
have
the
one of
same
them.
time. I can't remember now because we played them an awful lot in the cup. It's mixing it all up. I don't know, but yeah, they've been stuck down there for a while now after being fairly long termers in the championship. But yeah, I think in terms of this game on Saturday, Dunfermline playing the way that they are, you can't help but think that it'll be a fairly easy one for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially, I'm sure Queen of the South's last game was a 4-0 away defeat to Inverness Cally Thistle.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
And we know
actually.
the issues that Cali have had themselves, despite playing pretty well on the pitch. So I think it's an out of form Queen of the South side. But I actually think a lot of people in Scottish football, I certainly do, have got maybe a wee soft spot for Queen of the South. It's a glorious away day. So I expect Dunfermline to win, but I hope Queen of the South get through so that we can draw them away from home the next round.
No, I don't like any other team that has Queen in it, because anytime I say, or historically have said I'm a Queen's Park fan, it was, generally speaking, it was always Queen's Park Rangers, but it would be, what, down in Dumfries? And they're like, no, not Queen of the South. Queen's Park from Glasgow, playing Hampden at the time. So yeah, no, get it up them. One of ours. Next up, we got East Fife and Arbroath.
Yes.
Yes, was Dick Campbell still at East
Dick
Fife?
Campbell!
Yes.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, that's a great shout. I forgot about that. Yeah, this is going to be great. Dick Campbell coming up against Arbroath. Cam. Again, it's a banana skin. East Fife are a decent wee team. Down there in League One, are they? League Two? League One?
Unless they got relegated, they're in League One, obviously. Yeah. But unless they got relegated last year, they're in League One, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is one for me that, again, you would expect Arbroath to maybe edge this by a goal, but, I wouldn't be surprised if East Fife, got a win. Do you know, as a draw extra time, or as a draw?
I think it's
as a draw. Replays?
Oh, it's not replays. I don't think it's ever replays anymore. I think.
With patch replays.
And I don't think it's straight to penalties for the Scottish Cup.
That doesn't feel right, does it?
Nah, well, we beat you last year and it was extra time and penalties, if you recall.
Yes. Was that only last year? Oh, God, so it was.
Yeah, that was the
Rangers.
That was pre-Rangers game. So yeah, just last year, so extra time and penalties.
That was this round last year, wasn't it? Oh.
Yes, this is exactly what it was. So luckily we didn't have championship. Actually, I don't even know who you guys have, but we don't have a championship team this year. Woohoo!
Well, we're getting on to your game next. For Athletic Thistle.
Perfect.
Just as you say that, you almost like you set that up perfectly there, Cam.
I wish I could say it was on purpose, but no.
No, we're never bullshitters here at the Referees podcast. So,
well, we try not to be. We can't say for certain that we don't spout bullshit.
Oh no, we spout shit, but we aren't bullshitters.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes, I'll agree with that. Actually, that's good.
But yeah, we take on Forfar away, Cam. And it's one of those ones I'm expecting. A fairly comfortable win. Against a pretty average League Two side away from home. Obviously, if it was at Firhill, it's a even easier conversation. But I'm not expecting cricket score, but a nice 2 or 3 nothing Thistle victory will do the job nicely on Saturday.
Aye, are you making the nice trip to Forfar for that one?
Undecided at this stage. Just with not feeling great, obviously. So I'll wait and see how I go.
No, that'll be very nice for the travelling fans who do decide to go, whether that be yourself included. We'll obviously have to wait and see and report back next week. Next up, though, we have Morton. Got the hellish away trip up to Peterhead. That's obviously another big old journey, which is what some people would think is the joys of the Scottish Cup. I'm sure some of those Morton fans travelling from Greenock up to Peterhead would disagree. But yeah, I mean, Peterhead's always a bit of a weird one. Maybe not as scary nowadays as it once was. No Rory McAllister, or do they?
No. Oh. Nah, I think he retired.
Yeah, I think because he did go back, didn't he?
He did go back. You're right, but I'm sure he retired. I'm sure I remember seeing was there not? Did he not have a testimonial and all of that? And then he retired.
You can still have a testimonial when you're playing, but yes, I thought it'd be surprising had he still been playing. But yeah, obviously Queen's Park played against Peterhead in the whatever the pre-season, the Premier Sports Cup group. I'm sure we beat them there, 5-1 maybe. But prior to that, I would have always said, "Oh, tough game going up to Peterhead, Fortress up there." So we'll see what Martin managed to do. Obviously, still reeling from the loss of Dougie Emery, so we'll see if that has any impact. But I think you'd probably expect Martin to stick to their guns and hold fast, and at the very least not concede a goal against Peterhead. But I suppose we'll have to see.
I mean, I think you did touch one there. It's never going to be the easiest place to go. It's such a long way away up there in the North Sea. but it's probably not as the Peterhead of maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, where they had a bit of fear about them. So you don't rule them out, but as you said, you would expect Morton to come away with a win.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, it helps them being, a couple of divisions higher, but at the same time, Martin are generally speaking a tough cookie to break down. So for a lesser team, it may be even more of a challenge. Next game for the championship teams there, Wraith Rovers against Alloa. That one could potentially throw a wee spanner in the works, I think. Alloa are never a team to be taken too lightly, at least in terms of a Queen's Park perspective. I never felt like we had great luck against Alloa. Obviously, Wraith Rovers, though, nice new manager. Are they going to have a nice new manager bounce, do you think?
I mean, it's such an interesting one. You make the big point there. Alloa are never a team to take lightly. Like, they're always just, for me, I think of them as like the best part-time team in Scotland. Obviously, that's probably actually really Arbroath. But,
Yeah.
you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah.
Arbroath, Alloa are always there. Playoffs in League One, it would never really surprise me if they get into the Championship an odd season here or there, as they have done in the past. So it's not an easy one for Dougie Imrie. However, he'll be delighted that it's at home.
Yes.
I think an away trip to Alloa really would have been a huge banana skin. So I do think you need to say it's one where, as his first game in charge, you do need to think that they probably should get the result at home. But there's a lot of questions to be asked with this Wraith Rovers team. How are they going to take to a new style? Is he going to want to play as defensively as what he does at Morton? So it's going to be really interesting for me, Cam, to see what happens and to see A, how the crowd take to him, and B, how the players take to him.
Definitely, that's going to be the biggest thing. Is he going to be able to institute his way of playing over these kind of players at Wraith Rovers? I think so. I think they're not too dissimilar in terms of the players that make up the teams. I think they both have physical elements to it. Maybe Wraith Rovers have slightly higher caliber of certain positions at least. So I think he'll be overall pretty successful. But we'll have to see how his first test goes against Alloa on Saturday. And that takes us nicely on to the last championship team in this third round. As I've just noticed, there's no championship v championship ties. We've just got there isn't, is there? I don't remember.
No, it feels like Airdrie Hamilton is, but obviously it isn't.
Yeah.
So no, we don't.
But no, so we've got St Johnstone against Cove Rangers as the last tie for Saturday. I think we can only really expect one thing there, probably St Johnstone to take the victory against Cove. But again, Cove's one of those teams that you can never really take lying down. Always got the potential to cause a wee upset and take the points there, but it's going to be a tough journey taking it from St Johnstone back home with them. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I can't help but feel St Johnstone probably stretch the legs a wee bit, put a couple of goals in, and then maybe just sit back and see it out.
Yeah, I think this is almost the perfect fixture for St Johnstone, following the defeat against Thistle. It's the game at home that they would have wanted to just get a wee bit of confidence back in the board again, just to get a wee win of what you should expect them to get against Cove Rangers at home, who, as you said, Cam, over the years have done incredibly well. They are the type of team where they can cause a wee upset or two. I just don't see it happening though on Saturday. I know I've said that a lot, and a lot of your team are the favourites, which completely makes sense because they're playing all lower league opposition. So in theory, Cam, there should be no slip-ups. I think they can be guaranteed that there will be at least one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Scottish Cup does. It brings you a wee upset or two. So I'm just got fingers crossed it's not Queen's Park making a fool of themselves on the television, and it's maybe a Partick Thistle or a Ross County or a St Johnstone. That would be much more satisfying. I
don't want it to be St Johnstone. I don't want them just to have the league to focus on.
That's fair. It'd be the funniest would be Ross County.
That would be by far the funniest, playing the lowest level team. Yeah.
So everyone at home, just keep an eye out on these scores. Keep an eye out on the championship teams, and let's just have a wee fingers crossed for a wee upset somewhere. But only start hoping for that from Saturday morning onwards. We don't want any upsets before Saturday morning. Okay.
And not in the Forfar region.
And not in the Forfar region. Right, everyone, that has been what has turned into a bit of a Scottish Cup special there. We've due to the vast amount of games that there is, just because everyone's playing a non-championship team, it felt like, we were just blasting through fixture after fixture there. But that's us at the end of a podcast, potentially episode 15.
Always feels good to be back, doesn't it? And I think this is the point where we're going to try and be more consistent, probably until about Christmas time. We'll try and knock out at least one a week for our loyal listeners.
Well, the thing is, there's just been a two Bob show here. It's just one person's unavailable, that obviously rules things out. So
It does.
We will continue to endeavour to do it when we can, but sometimes things happen. People get sick. People are busy, but we'll certainly do our best, everyone. But just as mentioned many times before, there's no guarantees on times and dates. We'll get it out to you, but we don't know when. Maybe that should be our tagline.
That's why people, we'll get it to you, but question mark on when. That's why people love us.
Sure. It might be. We'll let everyone tell us that. But thank you, everyone, for listening. If you've managed to make it this far in, give us a wee like or subscribe or both, or comment or follow, or whatever the
button in front of you
the words are now for whatever platform it is that you're listening on. And we'll catch you all presumably next week.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, guys, and we'll see you next week.